The widow of the slain officer, you guys played the video a little while ago, she spoke for all New Yorkers. There's a few people that'll carry water for the Democrats, but everybody knows the Democrats and Biden have blood on their hands.
New York City streets were closed down for the funeral of 22-year-old officer Jason Rivera, who fatally was shot while responding to a domestic violence incident last week.
Meanwhile, 64% of Americans disapproving of President Biden's handling of crime. This is according to an ABC News Ipsos poll, and there it is on your screen. You can see the date of when it was conducted there at the bottom right. President Biden is set to meet with New York City Mayor Eric Adams. They're going to do that this week to address crime and safety in the city. This says an NYPD. The NYPD will prepare for Officer Wilbert Moore's funeral. This will be Wednesday after he and his partner, Officer Rivera, were killed in an ambush attack while responding to a domestic call. We have our panelists for this hour to discuss. Rich Valdes is joining us, host of This is America with Rich Valdes. Jennifer Kerns, host of All American Radio and Newsmax contributor. And Democratic strategist Mustafa Tameez. Thank you all for being here. Mustafa, if I can start with you on this. The poll that we just showed there of where Americans stand as far as approving or disapproval, 64% disapproving of this president's handling of crime, according to ABC News and Ipsos poll. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, in New York City, you have a population of over 22 million people that go into New York City. To look at crime rates in New York versus Wichita, Kansas, of course, when crime's high nationally, it's going to be in the bigger urban areas, and those big urban areas are what drive it. So this notion that criminals are doing political analysis, that criminals like us are standing there talking about politics and Joe Biden's policy or that one's policy, that just doesn't make any sense.
President Biden continues to struggle with his handling of crises, both domestic and abroad. The latest ABC News Ipsos poll showing 64% of Americans disapprove of President Biden's handling on immigration. That same poll also shows that 56% of Americans disapprove of President Biden's handling on the Russia-Ukraine situation.
All right, we'll bring our panelists back in for reaction. Rich Valdes, Jennifer Kerns, Mustafa Tameez. More bad polling here. Rich Valdes, we'll start with you with this. What are Americans seeing here in the second year of this presidency?
Well, I mean, despite the obvious inflation, the borders continue to be out of control. And I think this one is of particular import. Why? Because this isn't something like, oh, my gosh, we've got a bunch of immigrants that are rushing the border. That may be true, but it's only in part because Joe Biden's opened up the doors and said, hey, no, we're going to change what we call asylum. We're going to make all these changes. So people are coming, honestly, in their own goodwill, working with the coyotes, all of that stuff. Aside, Biden's opening the floodgates here. I think we have to take that into consideration. We just talked about a cop being shot. One of those shootings this week of those 7 that you mentioned during the news break was an illegal immigrant. So I think we have to really pay close attention to this. Plus, you guys played some audio, hidden audio, between the Border Patrol agents and their bosses and the Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas from Homeland Security. I mean, if this wasn't the guys on the ground, boots on the ground, saying they don't have confidence in the administration, I don't know what is. So clearly, Biden's got a big problem on his hands because nobody's raising their hand saying this is the best policy I've ever seen, not even the secretary.
Rich Valdes, Jennifer Kerns, Mustafa Tameez, thank you so much for being our panelists. We appreciate that.